Welcome to Generation Digital Workforce, the podcast that's here to explore the role of robotic process automation and other digital technologies. Whether you're just getting started or you're looking for advanced strategies and tactics, if you're curious about where human and digital workers are coming together to transform the future of work, then this podcast is for you. All right, let's get into the show.
Hello, everyone. This is Michael Marchuk with Blue Prism. Today on Generation Digital Workforce, my guest is Sanjay Kaniyar. I partner with the global advisory firm McKinsey Company. Sanjay, who's based in Boston, leads McKinsey's automation at scale practice. And I'll be talking with him today about the digital workforce in the insurance industry. Welcome, Sanjay.
Thank you, Michael. Glad to be here.
So share your career background and tell us a little bit more about how McKinsey's automation at scale practice works.
McKinsey's automation at scale practice is sort of it aims to help companies take full advantage of automation, right? When we say automation, it's the intelligent automation, right? The various technologies like AI, ML, RPA, OCR, workflow, and the likes. And large enterprises, we have found, 30 to 40% of the work they do is potentially automatable. So our mission is to help those companies capture value and impact from these automation technologies. That's the mission for the group, and me personally, I've been involved in this area for like the last 4 or 5 years. I'm one of the leaders in our global practice, and I focus a lot of my work in insurance industry, which is where I spend the bulk of my time on. Happy to chat about any of these topics.
So with your focus on the insurance industry, can you give us your perspective on the state of the union of the current digital workforce in the insurance industry?
So the way in terms of the maturity cycle where the insurance industry is, in terms of embracing these technologies to drive impact, it's probably fairly at the early stages, right? I think most of the large carriers and even medium carriers, they understand the potential. They see the value automation can deliver to their organization. And many of them, or most of them, have dabbled in a POC or in a sort of a pilot that they have done within their enterprise and got their hands dirty with the technology, what it can do, etc. And yet, very few have been on a journey to drive meaningful impact from this digital workforce, if you will. So that's how I would characterize where the insurance industry is.
So why do you think that is? What's hindering this scaling?
A few reasons. One is, I would say the biggest one is, where does this fit in the overall business strategy and the enterprise strategy, right? Because it's not that carriers are looking for new things to do, right? They already have a lot of things that are their priorities, particularly in this time and age of low interest rates. And then low growth across the globe, carriers have some priorities that are very urgent, and they need to get to those. And automation, needs to be positioned as an enabler of those strategies, right? Rather than something that you do on a side, or is one more thing to do on top of what you're already doing. So I think that's one. Second, this often, because as a result of one, I must say, this gets positioned as a not so much as a enabler of the strategy that the top of the house executives are thinking about, but it gets positioned as something that, okay, this is a good thing to do, let's do it on the side type of thing. So it doesn't raise to the level of a strategic priority for many of the carriers or most of the carriers. So therefore, the investment, the sort of the roadmap, the aspiration level, the sponsorship, all these things are not at the level it needs to be for it to drive meaningful impact. So that's number two. Number three, I would say, is a bit of a education and capability building issue, if you will. This is just like any new technology. This requires its own learning curve, right? You have to do many things before you can figure out what it takes to drive impact from automation. So it cannot be I know all the answers, I know exactly what to do, and I'm going to take these 4 steps and I'm going to drive impact. That doesn't quite work beyond the POC, if you will, right? When you enter into a POC, those parameters are well defined. You go do it, you drive impact, that's great. But those tend to be the low hanging fruit type of easy opportunities. But when you go beyond that, to drive value from automation at scale, right, across the enterprise, it requires a lot more test and learn, requires a lot more agile way of working, requires going through a learning curve, and also not just automation in a silo, but being able to or being open to looking at broader changes to do along with automation that few companies contemplate and actually get around to doing. So those would be the 3 reasons I'd call out as what gets in the way.
I see. So your discussion that's being on the side, it's not really strategic and they're not really sure where to approach it. So how does McKinsey help to overcome some of those obstacles as you're talking with your customers, to understand both what it is, but also that this could be a strategic lever from a much broader standpoint? How do you approach that?
Yeah, our approach is if I were to summarize, it has 3 pillars, if you will, right? Pillar 1 is, okay, what's your business strategy? What are you trying to get done as a business? Could be growth, could be productivity, could be time to market, could be any of those, right? So what is kind of your business strategy and what role can automation play in it, right? Having that alignment of your automation strategy with the business strategy is the priority, right? That's one pillar. Second pillar is we are a big believer in creating a top of the house view, a top of the house business case, enterprise-wise business case, and an enterprise-wide roadmap, right? Saying, okay, this is kind of our 2 to 3 year view. This is what we think the value potential is. This is what the investment is needed. And this is the roadmap of which areas we are going to go after in which sequence to get this value, right? So this is kind of a 2 to 3 year vision, business case, roadmap. That's the second piece. Third is very critical is the capabilities needed. Very, very often institutions underestimate the type and the quantity of some of these capabilities needed. The capabilities are not just somebody, do I have enough people who can write the RPA code, right? Who can code up a bot? That is a very small part of the capability that you need. You need a holistic set of capabilities all the way from business process, somebody who understands the business, what drives the value in that particular area of the business, be it claims, underwriting, servicing, whatever, right? Someone who understands what drives value. Second, someone who understands and who is able to redesign end-to-end processes and workflows in those areas. Then you need capabilities around design thinking and sort of clean sheet design of what the target state look like. Then you also need some folks who understand the full breadth of automation capabilities, right? Like all the 7-8 technologies that we mentioned. You need folks who can bring all those to bear, not just like I am looking for a nail. And the last but not least is the change management capability, right? So when you do all these things, the sort of the way people do their work changes, the day-to-day activities changes. Many of the mundane sort of repetitive tasks that people were used to doing for a significant portion of their time, that will likely go away. And therefore, they need to be repositioned either within that unit or a different unit or whatever, right? So there is a new skill building, for them and repositioning them. That there is that capability needed as well. So the holistic set of these capabilities is what's needed to drive value. So those kind of would be the 3 pillars that anchor a impact at scale automation program.
So you mentioned that the strategy piece is critical, but earlier on you said that they're not looking at this strategically. But as you bring this to mind and you take that top of the house, go to the C-suite and discuss with them, the potential capabilities of what they could be doing to create that enterprise roadmap, that 2 to 3 year view. How is McKinsey positioning that with the current business cycles that the insurance industry is in? You mentioned earlier it's about they're looking at the low interest rates and some of the slow growth. How do you position this capability change or this business transformation change at that level, given the current environment?
Yeah. It's critical that this is an enabler of what the carrier is trying to do, right? It could, just as an example, if one of the strategies that the carrier is pursuing is improving productivity for products that are low margin, for example, low face value policies, for example, right? If that is a strategy they are pursuing, right, then you can look at how automation can improve the call center productivity, how it can improve the back office productivity, how it can improve enhance self-service, how can you do STP. You need to look at all such opportunity areas to enable that business strategy, right? So this you don't sort of take this and try to apply it everywhere, but you go after where the carrier is trying to make an improvement. You look at those products, you look at those regions, and then you bring automation along as one of the important tools, along with the other tools that the carrier might be looking at, right? So what we would say is you want to sort of look at what is the business problem you're trying to solve, and then make sure that automation is a important and a prominent tool within the toolbox, right? Some of the other tools may be there and they need to be there, but this also needs to be one of the tools that the carrier uses to advance their agenda. So that I think is a common way that we look at positioning automation.
So one thing that you mentioned earlier was this whole concept of the capabilities that are needed to really fully embrace the approach. And you mentioned that the RPA coders that is a small part, and we've certainly seen that where it's a very small part is the actual development of the automations. You mentioned the capabilities that are related to business process reengineering or design thinking and whatnot. But one that I want to hone in on that you kind of went through was this whole change management of changing the workforce that's currently engaged in those processes and bringing them around to a much broader or different set of skills that they may need. How do you go about that within the insurance industry where sometimes, as we've seen, the tenures of employees in specific positions is quite long?
Yeah, there is no silver bullet answer to this, right? It's got to be looked at a micro level. There is no macro level answer. But see, I mean, we just perhaps easy to give an example, a real life example from a recent effort. There was an insurance company that had a significant number of its staff working on subrogation processing, which most of the for 80-90% of the claims, insurance claims. This process was fairly predictable, not a lot of human judgment involved, not a lot of other sort of skills that the humans bring to bear. None of that was actually very useful. So we built automation to more or less automate this entire subrogation process, and humans were only needed to look at the exception cases, right? So that was kind of the automation impact delivery that we helped this carrier achieve. Now the question is, 70 to 80% of the subrogation team, that was a pretty reasonably sized team. So what do you do with them, right? So most of them were repositioned into other areas of claims, right? They already know the claims life cycle, they know the claims value chain, they understand sort of how it fits in the overall insurance value chain. So most of them were repositioned into some of the newer areas of claims processing that this company was getting into. Of course, that would require training, that would require skill building, etc. But these folks, they know the company, they know the systems, they know the type of claims, the type of policies. So they have a lot of learning that they have already done. So fairly sort of straightforward if they are committed to learning new skills to reposition them into other related areas within the company. So that's those things come like happen quite a bit, and something that every carrier looks to pursue.
I like the way you position that, because I think that's important to understand, is that these folks who have been around for 20 plus years, they really do know the company, they know the industry. They're very valuable to the organization as a whole because of their experience within their roles. They've seen a lot of these exceptions. They've managed through them over time. They've seen things evolve over time. So giving them this opportunity to make this transition to another part of the organization could actually be something that could open them up to broadening their skill set or bringing that experience to other parts of the organizations. That's what you've seen when these things have happened?
In many cases, yes. In many cases, yes. Look, it would be naive to think that in every instance, every employee, every staff member will be able to find another role. I wish that was the case, but not always the case, right? In some cases, the carriers are seeing, like, lowering volumes, or there aren't enough opportunities for folks to do the type of work that they have been doing, and the new skills that they need are significant departure from what they're used to in their careers, and they're, say, near retirement or a couple of years to retirement. Then many of them have said, look, we would rather retire early than sort of try this new thing for the remainder of our career. So there has been those as well, and every situation is unique, and every company is unique, and they need to think through this right up front.
So with the broad number of use cases potentially within the industry, where do you see, say, the top two or three that insurance industries really need to be focusing on as an industry level kind of activity?
This is there is no sort of one size fits all, right? Like I think you alluded to, each company is unique, each line of business is unique as well, right? But I'm happy to share some examples where we have seen a lot of traction within personal lines, right? Which is our personal auto, home, etc. Claims is a big sort of activity center. And then there is plenty of opportunity there to automate, and we have seen quite a bit of automation effort in that area in personal lines. Within commercial lines, there is quite a bit of paperwork, quite a bit of manual processing, both in the initial underwriting time as well as during the renewal time. And particularly, right, I mean, for commercial lines, in particular, renewal is a pretty major activity, right? That's what that's where a lot of the business is, our activities on a year-on-year basis. So within renewal, it's largely looking at the delta between what has changed, therefore how do you reprice the policy, etc. A lot of that can be automated, which frees up the underwriters to do higher value added things. So within commercial, underwriting has been a big area of automation. Within life insurance, the majority is in servicing, if you will, right? Life policy is sold, it stays there for quite a long time. And during that period, there is all sorts of periodic activities, right, where you have to send all sorts of statements, then you have answer all sorts of questions, so on and so forth. So there is a significant amount of servicing that within life insurance there is opportunity to automate. So that's kind of how I would say the predominant or initial areas of use cases within these specific lines. But taking a step back across the board, right? If you look at some of the activities where there is a lot of predictable knowledge work happening, it'll be in like finance, it'll be in areas like that, right? In FP&A, in treasury, in controller, so on and so forth. So finance is a sort of and in procurement, similarly in procurement, right? So there are some horizontal areas like finance. They are also a priority for many of the carriers to start their journeys with. Those would be the examples I'd call out.
And I would say that we've seen that horizontal application across most industries as being a very either good place to start or someplace that really requires that sort of view of automation. So I see insurance as not being too different from everyone else in terms of how that's applied. So that makes sense to me. So one of the things that we've seen is a disparity. So we've got some very large insurance carriers that have these very mature implementations of automation where they're really ingraining what you had mentioned earlier, this capability within their organization to build it out as just that, as a full-on capability to support not just one particular function, but many functions. And they're going deep into each one of those functions as they're exploring the opportunities to help them become more efficient or work toward that business process that you were talking about earlier, what they're really trying to go from a goal. We have some companies, though, that are similarly sized, same type of insurance carrier in terms of the type of insurance lines they offer, et cetera, about the same size in terms of an overall organization, who are much less mature. How would McKinsey approach a situation like that when the environment is much less mature? They're looking towards doing that, but they don't know how to get there.
I don't know whether there is a secret sauce answer here, right? I mean, the classic sort of sequence of steps for any company to kind of take would be, first is understanding the lay of the land, understanding the opportunity, getting the senior executives to learn about this topic, and sort of take a critical view of what it can do for their industry and their company. There are many avenues to doing this, right? You can learn, you can through reading. There are lots of publications, ours and across the industry. So the initial phase is the discovery phase, right? The executives need to kind of go through this discovery phase. Second would be conviction building, right? Conviction building would be looking at some of the industry leaders within your own industry or outside of your industry, right? Looking at what they have done, what are sort of the puts and takes, what did it take them to drive impact, how did they think about the journey, learning about all these things, either through sort of talking to their peers within and outside the industry, or some of them host, including our clients, some they host go and see. So going and looking at what they have done, talking to the frontline folks, etc. So the second phase, like after discovery, second would be the conviction building, right? For them to understand, yes, we can do this. This is in our this is something that we should do and we can do, right? Building that conviction amongst themselves. Then step 3 will be to sort of creating a vision and a aspirational statement to say, okay, look, we are going to use this as a major tool, automation as a major tool to get after some of the things that we are trying to do. That could be an enterprise-wide productivity improvement program or a growth program, whatever. So whatever transformation they're running, they're going to say, okay, look, we are going to use automation as a big value driver here. And then we think that there is significant value, right? It could be X% in cross-sell, X% in revenue improvement, Y% in productivity improvement. It could be a combination of any of those, right? So the step 3 would be the defining the vision, mission, and the impact opportunity, right? That's step 3. And then, step 4 and 5, like I said before, it's like the business case and the roadmap, getting the right capability, and then execution, right? And, executing in an agile manner, etc. So the initial steps, I think, is what you are looking for. I hope I answered the question.
Oh, you did. You did. No, that's the broader viewpoint of it all. So, as you mentioned a couple times now, the executive understanding of the capabilities and the vision to support this are critical for the success or the implementation of any kind of automation program across both insurance companies, but any company in general. Which of these C-level roles do you typically see leading the charge and being most invested in this type of process?
It varies quite a bit, to be honest, right? But it's a complete spectrum. In many cases, CFOs do this if it's a productivity enterprise-wide productivity program. In some cases, the CIOs do it, chief information officers, right? If it is a automation type of program enabled by technology across the enterprise. I've seen some of the functional leaders, like, for example, chief claims officers do this, chief servicing officers do this, right? So they will say, okay, I'm going to do this within my domain because I think there is a lot of opportunity here, right? So they do this. Then, in some cases, some of the business leads or the heads of BUs do this, though that's probably rarer than the other three. But the first three, I think, are the most typical roles, C-level roles that kind of take this as an important item on their agenda.
So when you're looking at the companies who have adopted a digital workforce and are bringing in this concept of automation, being part of this automation at scale group within McKinsey, how would you lead them? What's your approach to leading them get the value out of what they currently have with an eye toward the future? Maybe to extend the value that they've already got from the capability they own.
We typically, there are many sort of ways we enter the conversation, right? In some cases, the executives will say, look, our program is not doing very well. It had an initial sort of a flash, but after that it has tailed off. Can you guys, talk to some of our folks who are leading this, come back and tell us what we can do differently to kind of, accelerate this, right? So that's kind of one way we enter into the conversation. The second is some will say, look, we did this pilot, it went off very well, but now we really have multiple options or multiple ways in which we can sort of take this forward and scale it up. We are interested in hearing your views. How can you help us? How can you help us think through this, right? So that is another entry point. And there is a third variety of cases where executives will say, look, we have been at this for a while, and I hear differing views. Some say it's going well, some say it's not going well, some say it overpromised, under-delivered, some say no, this is what. So I hear all sorts of views. Why don't you guys come in with a sort of no bias, take an objective look at how we have been at this, right? And tell us, therefore, what we should do, right? So that's also been a very common way where we have entered some of these situations, right? So we have something called a Automation 2020 survey. It's like a 15-question survey. We typically start with that, and we have a number of folks within the company fill it out. That we have a pretty robust benchmark of how rest of the industry compares. So we kind of use that as a way to calibrate companies and say, okay, look, you need to do more work in the area of strategy or in the area of roadmap, or you have all those, but you don't have executive alignment, or you have all those, but you don't have the capability to execute. So whatever we sort of understand coming based on that survey, we use that to advise the company. So those would be sort of the various ways in which we help organizations push forward on this agenda.
I gotcha. So Last question. If you're talking to an executive or executive is listening to this right now in the insurance industry, what's at least one thing that they should take away from this right now that they should be doing in their organization?
It's difficult to come up with one thing, but I'll try. I think there is a, I think it goes without saying, there is significant potential from automation for insurance carriers today, not a year from now, 2 years from now, but today, right? Based on the technologies, based on the skill sets, based on expertise that's available in the marketplace, there is significant potential that can be unlocked with automation today. So so don't sort of don't push this down 5 levels. Take the time, if you haven't already, to learn about the opportunity, and then put out a challenge to folks within your organization to say, look, there is something here. I want you guys to come back, tell me how we can get after this and drive 20-30% value from this in the next couple of years. So take some time to get yourself familiar with it, if not already, and then put out a challenge to your organization to be aspirational. That's what I would say.
Well, there you go. The challenge is on. All right. Well, thank you so much, Sanjay, for joining us today on Generation Digital Workforce. We really appreciate your insight into the insurance industry related to digital workforce and the challenges that insurance companies are facing right now to support this. So I appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Michael. Take care.
You've been listening to Generation Digital Workforce. If you want to hear more about RPA, AI, and other cognitive technologies that are shaping the future of work, join us next time as we continue to go deeper on these topics with industry innovators and experts. To make sure you never miss a future episode, subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast player. And if you've liked what you heard today, please leave us a review. It's one of the best ways to help more people find valuable content. For show notes and more info, visit us at blueprism.com/podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.